Welcome to ACC Nation, featuring sports news and special guest interviews. Here's Will Ojanen and Jim Quist.
Welcome to ACC Nation. That's Will Ojanen. And our special guest is Austin Hough from the South Bend Tribune. And thank you very much for joining us, Austin. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Jim and Will, for having me on. Like I said before we hopped on here, man, I love hearing the sound of my voice. So we're gonna have some fun talking. Hopefully, mostly Notre Dame women's basketball. We don't have to talk about the men's team. They're hanging out down there. They're hanging out down there. We can talk about the women's team. They're a lot more fun over here in South Bend. So
sounds like a thing. Hey, be sure to look for Austin. He has been seen floating around USA Today, Yahoo Sports, Indy Star, and of course the Cincinnati Enquirer. So
Gannett owns a lot of properties. That's what I'm hearing. So.
Yeah, among other places.
I make cameos where I'm needed, primarily SouthBendTribune.com, but, hey, wherever the byline wants to show up, I'm cool with that.
That's right. That's right. It's all good. As long as it's keeping you busy. Let's talk about Notre Dame women's basketball. Number 3 in the AP. They are number 5 in the net. And, one of the things that probably is holding them back in the net right at the moment is they have 2 early season quad 1 losses, which I'm still scratching my head over. Let's go back and take a look at those.
Yeah.
And tell me what your thoughts are on those losses in the Cayman Islands Classic.
Yeah. So they're undefeated on U.S. soil this year. Only 2 losses in the Cayman Islands. They had just come off the big win against USC the Saturday before at USC. It was a top 5, top 10 game, whatever it was at the time. And I don't know, maybe they just lost focus a little bit. It's kind of like a vacation in a sense. You get to go to the Cayman Islands for a couple of days, and maybe and it wasn't like they played poorly per se. I mean, it's a 10-point loss. They were both double-digit point losses, but it wasn't like they were blown out in either game. They kept them competitive. They just didn't execute down the stretch, or had bad moments in the game where they just didn't click. But it was kind of a weird blip, but they have been, rock solid since they've come back from the Cayman Islands. And like I said, it's a joke, but it's true. They are undefeated in the United States. Like, they have not lost a game on our country's soil. They came right back and beat number 4 Texas at the time, and then they beat UConn at home. Texas was a great game overtime, but UConn, they kind of controlled UConn from start to finish. So they have found their footing, and as long as they don't move the Final Four to, Barbados or something, I think we're going to be okay. They're going to be fine. So
that win over UConn it has got to be tasty. I know that when Muffet McGraw was there, her battles with Gino were classic. And I don't think there was any love lost between them. They respected each other, but I don't think there was any love lost.
It was professional respect. I think they respected both them being top 5 programs consistently, but we're never they weren't getting coffee together the next morning or something. Let's say that. So
that must have been a real pleasure for Neil Ivey, as a relatively new coach, to get a win like that, because it is certainly pumped up the quad 1 win resume of the Irish. I mean, that's a solid win.
And they got them last year too, in UConn, in Connecticut, in late January. That kind of, I don't want to say it saved the season. They were going to go to the NCAA tournament and everything, but they went to UConn on a Saturday night in late January, right around this time, and they won. And Hannah Hidalgo had her kind of breakout moment. She'd already been a great player, but I think this was her definitive national stage. They were the Fox 8 p.m. Eastern primetime Saturday night game, and they took it to UConn. And I think from that point on, they've kind of been galvanized and rallying as a group. They've been pretty unstoppable as a team. The only thing that slowed them down is the injuries. Which happened all at the end of last year, and then they've been getting healthier this year. But yeah, for them to beat UConn 2 years in a row, I think Neil Ivey, I think is at least 2-1, maybe 3-1 against UConn right now. She's done pretty well in her 4 or 5 years as a head coach against the Huskies. So to beat them is a pretty big deal. It is their biggest non-conference game every year. It's one of the game. It's always a sellout. It's always a sellout here, and people get excited. And when you beat them, especially the way they did this year, where they kind of definitively beat them start to finish, it definitely was that rubber stamp of like, yes, like this team is legit. And also, it was definitely, I think, Hannah Hidalgo's moment of like, she is the player of the year right now. Like she is legitimately the player of the year, and that was where I think it became clear was UConn.
So we have an NCAA reporter in Italy who joins us from time to time and talks about women's basketball and absolutely has this thing for Gino. And every time we interview her, I have to sit here and sort of bite my lip, not to not to insult her, because I don't like Gino. I never have. But professional respect. Will?
So you mentioned Hannah Hidalgo, and we had our women's bracketologist Megan Gower on last week, and we were talking about Hidalgo and how she's my favorite player in women's basketball because I love players who do everything. They fill up the stat sheet with everything. And if you look at and Hidalgo's a great scorer, don't get me wrong, but it's her rebounding, her passing, her defense. It's not it we women's basketball is looking for another star now that Caitlin Clark has moved on. I think Hannah Hidalgo should be that one.
And Hidalgo too, like she just plays with this like swag, like she is not afraid to trash talk on the court and like tell you that I am the best player. Like she makes a big three and she gets amped up and she's getting the crowd going and she gets a steal or whatever and makes a layup and she's not afraid to chirp in your face. Like she kind of has that, she's from Jersey. She kind of has that like Jersey, street kind of cred, for lack of a better term, like playing in the Rucker Parks. And I know it's New York, but still, she's kind of like that type of player. She's just really scrappy and easy to root for and very entertaining. And she does everything. She's maybe the best defensive player in the country, along with scoring 25.5 points a game so far. She's incredible. And, of all the players they have a really great team. She is definitely the most in indisposable. Is that the right word? They cannot afford to lose her the most. Like, even though they didn't have her for 2 games last week and they still won both, like she is the reason why they could win a national championship. She is just that alpha, for lack of a better term, that can take over a game and win you a game if you're not playing well. So,
but then there's also her cohort Olivia Miles, who if it's not her, if it's not Hidalgo's the most, valuable player, it's her because she is such a great ball handler. And even, with her down, she's still scoring at a good rate and she's distributing at a very good rate. She's definitely a very valuable member of this team.
Yeah, Notre Dame arguably has, two of the top 10 point guards in the country. Olivia Miles was an All-American type point guard before she got injured. I think people forget that because she didn't play at all last year. Like she was kind of ascending into this Hidalgo type role. She was already kind of there. And to have those two as a weapon that you can take Hidalgo off the court and you're not worried. You can take Miles off the court and you're not worried about the flow of the offense, like is incredibly valuable. They're just they probably are the most dynamic backcourt in the entire country right now, and they've shown it, with their play so far this year. So
a player who does kind of go under the radar a little bit, Liatu King. We mentioned the 2 games that Hidalgo missed. She was a big part of that. Clemson had 23 and 11. Georgia Tech had 12 rebounds. She averages a double-double on the season, and despite that, she still kind of goes under the radar a little bit.
Maybe the most impactful, like Notre Dame didn't really do the transfer portal that much with this roster because they had a lot of them coming back. The whole team basically last year was returning and they just had to be healthy. But Liatu King's involvement or role, it cannot be understated how incredible she's been. She just, like you mentioned, the double-double average, and she just she's a killer in the mid-range. Like she just loves the mid-range jumpers and she makes feels like she makes all of them. It's like DeMar DeRozan in the NBA right now. Like it just feels like she doesn't miss. So she's great. She's been a perfect player, like perfect culture fit. Like everyone seems to love her. And like, she is kind of that scrappy, doesn't mind not having the spotlight on her, just wants to go in there, do what she can do best, and help the team win. Let Hannah Hidalgo go crazy with the highlights and screaming and the cheering, and I'll be fine with my 8 points and 12 rebounds and maybe a block or two. Like she's just that type of player. Like it's been perfect. It's the exact player they needed to kind of glue, be the proverbial glue person for this group.
Man, we got the adrenaline pumping on Austin Hough with the South Bend Tribune. He's joining us talking about Notre Dame women's basketball. This is what I warned you about at the very beginning. Going off the rails here for a moment. We're going to do something completely different here. First timers, everybody listens to the show knows first timers, when you get on, we're going to talk some food. Okay. I got you all worked up now. You got an appetite going. We've got an appetite going. So now you have to tell us in South Bend what's your favorite place to go and what type of food you like to eat the most.
South Bend. That is a great question.
I'll tell you what, if South Bend doesn't do the tricks, because sometimes it doesn't, we may have to go back to your home base. Okay.
I'll think of South Bend. If people are coming up here to watch the great Notre Dame women's basketball team, where are they going to go? Right. There are some spots. Actually, I'm as we're taping this, we have a friend who's doing a going away party that I'm going to be heading out to. And it's not happening right now, but it's happening later tonight at this place called Salsa's that people like. It's a Mexican place, obviously, given by the name. I think I gave it away, but that's a nice little spot in town. There's some good pizza spots in town. I like pizza. Like I grew up in Chicago area, so like pizza is like 10% of my, body mass or whatever. So, there's some good spots in town. Bruno's, Barnaby's is a cool little, there's a couple Barnaby's locations that are really nice. Trying to think, man, we have a Sun King brewery that has a Smash Burgers place within it. It's a brewery. They have the company's the burgers just rents out the space. That's really good. The good Smash Burgers. It's like South Bend isn't necessarily like known for its food per se. We've kind of got a little bit of everything, just but there's like some local bars that are great, for Friday nights and Saturday nights. The Linebacker Lounge, which got featured a lot on ESPN the other night when they were cutting in for the national championship game. So, it's a fun little town. There's some good options for food, and Chicagoland, though, you gotta go deep dish pizza, of course. Pick whichever one you want. They're all pretty dang good. Lou Malnati's, Giordano's, Gino's East. I know people love Pequod's. I don't think I've ever had Pequod's in Chicago, actually. Maybe I'm a bad Chicago person for not having that, but there's a lot of great pizza options if you're in Chicago. So, you can't really go wrong with any of them. And obviously, like the Billy Goat Tavern, iconic, it's not a pizza place, but it's iconic in Chicago as well. So.
All right. So which is better, Chicago deep dish or Detroit pizza?
It's not even a question, dude. Come on, Chicago deep dish. What are we talking about here? Would you rather have Giordano's or Little Caesars? I mean, come on. You know what I mean? I don't mind Detroit's little square things, but if I'm choosing to have one or the other, it's got to be a deep dish. It's got to be a deep dish.
Yeah, fair enough. I wouldn't have expected anything less. And we may.
And also, come on, dude, Chicago and Detroit, that's like a rivalry in sport. Like Blackhawks, Red Wings, like, dude, I can't pick Detroit in anything. Bears, Lions. The Bears just took Ben Johnson, so
that's right.
He's a Bears fan, so
Bears fan here.
We're up on the rivalry now, I guess.
Yeah. And hopefully he delivers too. So there.
Let's see.
If you'd have said something other than Chicago deep dish, I guess we would have had to revoke your Chicago man.
Would have been fun. Would have been fun. I mean, I would have respected it. I would have understood.
Never would have been able to show your face in the suburbs ever again.
No.
Just saying. So let's get back on track here and talk a little bit about this team. Let's talk about Neil Ivey and what she has really. It's like when you make changes in coaches, you can see that sort of it starts to tail off, right? We saw it with Mike Krzyzewski. and we, it takes a little bit of time to get the momentum going again. Saw a little bit of that with Muffet McGraw to Neil Ivey. What does Neil Ivey bring to this team that is making the difference? Because I don't want to compare the two, to be honest with you, but there's something there about Neil Ivey. There's an energy, something that I'm seeing that I think fans are seeing too.
Yeah, I think you just hit it. I think she has like just this dynamic personality to her. She's kind of cool. She's cool. Like she's not like, old. Like she's a younger person. She was on the 01 national championship team under Muffet. So like, she bleeds Notre Dame. Like she, was an assistant under Muffet for years before being, promoted to the head coaching role. Her first year as a head coach was the COVID year, 2020 and 2021. So like that was kind of a weird. You're trying to like, become the head coach and insert your program, but you really don't have the like, full abilities to do that, right? So it was kind of a weird transition year for them. But once she has gotten, her first kind of recruiting classes in, and it's been great. I mean, like, they're the players like that have been around 3-4 years. I mean, you don't see this often. I know, women's basketball maybe not as much transfer portaling or you hear about it as much at least, but like, I'm sure, Sonia Citron, she's a good player. She's probably the third best player on this team. She probably had chances, if she wanted to go play as a number one player at wherever, insert school, and she hasn't. And Maddie Westbeld, same thing. Another key piece to them. She's just coming back from injury. Like, they want to stay and they want to play for Neil Ivey. Like, they know, like, they are building something special here. It's very similar energy to like Marcus Freeman with the football program. You've seen it especially this year with they had to galvanize themselves basically after that Northern Illinois loss and all the injuries. Like the LIV got Notre Dame women's to the Sweet 16 the last 2 years, and they've had like 6 healthy players both years. Like it's pretty remarkable stuff. Like they were the 2 seed a couple years ago when they had no right to being earning a 2 seed with who was left on the roster. So she just has this energy, this personality, this desire to win. She's a super big competitor. Like, it's impressive to see her, build this. I mean, it was already built, but really sustain what Muffet and McGraw had built, and maybe even elevated in some areas a little bit more. Like it just feels like she has rejuvenated, especially after that for her first year. Like she has rejuvenated the fan base once again, and she's great. She's a great person, and they are locked in because of her leadership.
Yeah, you can definitely see it if you're on the outside looking in. You see it very clearly,
and she has like the best outfits too in the game. Like she's always wearing dynamite. Like I know Kim Mulkey gets a lot of attention because she wears those outlandish things, but like Neil Ivey, like legitimately like wears. She's always dressed very well for these big games.
Yes.
So. It's always interesting to see what she's gonna wear. Like that sounds dumb, but like it's like what type of dress she's gonna wear for the game, because it's like it's a big game when she brings out like the power suit, the power suits and stuff.
I'll take Neil over Kim any day from the standpoint of what they wear. So
absolutely.
Anyway, Will.
I miss the head coaches that wear the suit. Like I'm a Missouri grad, and Dennis Gates wears the suits. It's kind of a nice little throwback.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I was gonna say Ivy dresses for style, where Mulkey dresses for attention. So
yes, yeah, that's a good way of putting it. So,
just wanted to bring up the defense as a whole here. So this is something that's been really big for Notre Dame in conference play. If I was looking at it correctly, they've only allowed one team to shoot better than 40% in conference play. A lot of teams have been held into like the low 30s. I know against Virginia they held them to like 29% shooting. So. What's been the sort of the springboard to this defense?
I mean, Hidalgo sets the tone at the top of it with her pressure. I mean, they put pressure. She's a pest on defense, and that's a compliment. Like she will bug the crap out of you basically. And her just creating chaos, throws the opposing offenses out of rhythm, more times than not. Even if she doesn't get a steal, like they're going to still be out of sync. Citron is a really good defender. She just a really good on ball. Like they will put Sonia Citron on the other team's best player and just say go to work, unless it's like a crazy height discrepancy, which it usually isn't. So Citron is just a great like, man-to-man defensive player for them, which helps the cause. And then, now that they're finally getting healthy, like we mentioned, like Westfeld back after, she's only played 5 games, but that's some height down low. Kaval King is also some height down low as a freshman. Like, they're finally able to have some 6-footers kind of clogging the lane to help with all of the, pesky little point guards and shooting guards that they have out there, shutting people down. Layatu King is also a good defender. Like, they buy into the defensive end of the court, and that's what springboards a lot of their offense with steals and blocks and, limiting opponents to one possession and then going down the court and trying to get a quick bucket. Like, that's where they have kind of thrived the last, especially in conference play, but as the whole season as well.
Kaval was somebody I wanted to bring up as well. Somebody as a freshman who has been a big catalyst defensively as well, as we were talking about it. Somebody who, especially early in the season when she was playing a little bit more, was just a menace down low, putting up double doubles. I think there was one game where she had 7 blocks. She's just a freshman, and it's the way that they're doing this is just so impressive.
Yeah, in a weird way, it was almost a blessing that Maddie Westfeld was out for the first half of the year, because it gave Koval so much playing time as right away as a freshman. Like, here you go, like, welcome to here's USC and here's Texas and here's UConn. Like, you're our starting center for these games. Like, good luck, So like I said, it's obviously you wish you'd had Maddie Westfeld for those games. They still won, but to get Koval that playing experience was huge, and now you have 2 big players down low that feel comfortable playing in a major college basketball game. I mean, Westfeld's been here for a few years now, so it's nothing new to her. But Koval now is not as maybe nervous as she would have been if she was being thrown into an Elite Eight game, in March if they get there, right? So it was actually a good thing in a weird way that Koval has been able to play a lot of minutes early with Westfeld being out.
From what you've seen, who is the biggest threat to Notre Dame in the ACC?
Themselves. It honestly feels like themselves. They're going to play Louisville twice, right? It's hard to beat a team twice. It's kind of a cliche, right? I mean, I don't know, man. Like, it's weird. I don't think they're going to go unbeaten in the ACC, but like, they could. Like, I just don't know how much I trust anybody else right now. Duke, I guess, but that's a home game. Like, Notre Dame will be at home. It's a Monday night. It's a special Monday night game against Duke. Again, Louisville's probably the one where I know they're not ranked right now, but like, playing them twice, that's always been a competitive game between those two the last however many years. In theory, like, maybe that, they go to NC State late. Like, I'm just looking at their schedule right now because I'm trying to jog my memory so you could maybe beat them, but like, I'll take him at home against Cal. Like, I'll take him at home against Duke. Like, I just don't see them losing a home game, unless they just play their worst, effort. So they should win the ACC regular season, barring something unforeseen. And they're going to be the favorites in the tournament again, and they'll be probably a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament if they don't, as long as they keep on this trajectory.
All right, since we opened this can of worms, I'm going to kind of go opposites here a little bit. First thing is I'm going to set this scene up here. They're in the ACC. They're number 2 offense, number 5 defense. They're number 1 and almost shooting 50% in field goal twos. They're number 1 in threes at 41%, which is just staggering. Number 1 defensive rebounds, number 1 block shots, number 1 assists, number 1 steals. I can just go down this long list of achievements. And as you said, maybe they are their own worst enemy, but let's explore that for just a second. What possibly could go wrong here? Look, we're not going to jinx anything here. I'm just going to say it right out. We're not.
The I word is what came to my brain, which has kind of hurt them, no pun intended, the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
If they are healthy, big if they are healthy, they seem so focused right now. Like, I really don't know if they are going to sabotage themselves. Like, it's not like there's some egos. the big storyline coming into the year was how can Hannah Hidalgo and Olivia Miles exist together, right? Like it's these two kind of alpha point guards.
Yeah.
Now they're finally playing. People thought Olivia Miles was going to transfer. Like even up until like June, they thought she was going to transfer,
Hmm.
and she didn't. And there was a lot of question like how are they going to? There's only one ball, right? And all that kind of stuff. And they have worked seamlessly together. Like they are dynamic together, and they feed off each other, and it's a great partnership. So like it just doesn't feel like a group that is going to have like an ego take over or something and like sabotage from within. Like it really is just a matter of if they stay healthy, like this is a Final Four team. They have the point guards, they have the forwards, and Citron and King, they have Westfeld, they have Kowal down low. Like they have 6, 7 girls players that are really dynamic at what they do. It feels like this is a team that should be in Tampa for the Final Four.
Okay. Now, something that you also pointed out earlier about in the past, going into the NCAA tournament with a limited number of people available to Neil Ivey, has the depth on that bench gotten better? That they're able to rotate?
Yeah, I mean, as of right now, their kind of core is like 6, 7, and they throw in Prosper a little bit as well. Like so they play about 7, which is not like super deep, but they're not afraid to like I think use their bench players. Like if we're gonna talk about like who is gonna be the difference makers for this team when they're playing these big games, it's Hidalgo, Miles, Citron, Westfeld, King, Kaval, Prosper. Like it's those 7 that'll probably be getting the bulk of the minutes. And those first 6 really will be the ones that get the bulk of the minutes. They seem to not ever get tired, despite the pace that they play at. Sometimes they don't seem to ever get exhausted, so that's a good thing. But obviously, when you get into an NCAA tournament game, you never know. Like, could be officiated differently, or foul trouble has kind of been something they've been able to avoid, work around. If so we'll see. We'll see if they have enough horses after those 7, to potentially help them out. But I mean, those 7 are pretty darn good. So that 7 can beat a lot of teams in the country. I mean, UCLA and South Carolina kind of right now, but like Notre Dame is right there in that mix.
Next 7, who is most likely to be stepping up? Maybe this year, maybe toward the end of the year, and next year.
Well, that is a great question. I don't know. I honestly like the thing is too is like, Miles can come back and Hidalgo is coming back. She's only a sophomore. So like they have players, like these star players are still gonna be coming back next year. I know that there was she's escaping my name or my brain right now, but they had a woman player who was before the season, she was injured kind of last year, and she's kind of like taking a medical redshirt year. I wish I could remember her name. I apologize. This is bad podcasting. But she's gonna be back next year. It was kind of a weird thing. It was like right before, like a week before the regular season or two. It was like, oh, by the way, I'm not playing this year, and it was like Notre Dame. Like, what do we do? Like, how many players are gonna miss the season for this team? Kylie Watson is missing this whole year, probably from a torn ACL. I believe she has some eligibility left, at least one more year. She was a big player. She was, I mean, literally, she's a center. She got injured in the ACC tournament last year, so she's expected to be back. So like there's those types of players that are kind of like on the undercard, for lack of a better term, but they're going to still have. I mean, they could still have Miles and Hidalgo next year. Miles might go to the WNBA draft. That's a decision I think that'll be made obviously after the season, but she still has at least eligibility. I'm not 100% confident, but even Citron I think has one where you're like, this whole team is weird. COVID threw everyone off, right? Everyone got like bonus years and red shirts, and they've kind of all been injured. So like, have they taken a medical red shirt yet? Or so it's kind of hard to figure out. But I mean, you're gonna have a doggo at least next year. So who cares who the other 4 players are, right, on the court? Like you got her, you got a chance. So they'll be fine. Notre Dame will be fine. Like if other than the COVID year, they have been the model of kind of consistency in women's basketball for one of the models of consistency. So like I have no doubt they will figure this out.
Real quick, we've talked about Maddie Westfeld, and she's just coming off of injury. Is she still? Are they still kind of limiting her minutes a little bit?
Yeah, they've been working her back in. I mean, want to rush it right now. You want her to be 100% fully when you get to like late February and March, right? You want to have her ready to go. So maybe not trying to push her too much. She is starting, but she's kind of been more even with Kowal in the minutes, give or take. Her average right now is, I think like 18, 20 minutes a game. So yeah, she'll be fine. I think they're going to get her back and she'll be fine by the time we get to, ACC tournament and NCAA tournament. So, but they've been smart with not trying to overuse her right now.
And as far as obviously you see nobody being a real threat. You still feel pretty confident that there'll be a 1 seed then come Selection Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, if they keep at this pace, like, because look, they've already beaten what, three top 5 teams in the non-conference. They took care of North Carolina when they were ranked, and they beat Georgia Tech last week when they were ranked, right? They're going to have a couple more chances to win ranked games here, at least as the rankings stand currently. Cal and Duke and NC State, right? Like, I'm not saying they're going to win all those games. I'm confident that they will. It's like, I don't think they're going to like win every game, but I'm not going to pick them to lose any of the games. You know what I mean? It's a weird thing where like, like maybe at NC State, but other than that, like, I think they're pretty locked in. If they win the ACC regular season, I think they're a 1 seed no matter what. Like, unless someone really surges past them, but it just feels like as of this moment, it's UCLA, it's South Carolina, it's Notre Dame, and then a 4th 1 seed will be up for grabs, it feels like. But those 3 have kind of, I feel like, distanced themselves amongst some of the rest of the programs, in the country.
All right, Jim, I'm gonna wrap it up.
So let me put you out on a limb, and I'll hand you a saw. How far do you think this team can go?
They can win the national championship. They're that good. They can win the national championship. There's no doubt. Hidalgo is a star. Like, Hidalgo is the best player in the country, and they have the height. They have the defense. They have the star player in the point guard. 2 star players in their backcourt. Really, there's nothing really stopping them from winning a national title unless they just play, a truly better team. Which maybe they just have an off night and they lose to a better team. It happens. It's sports. Some of the great teams we've seen in recent years don't win the national championship. Like, that South Carolina team a couple years ago that was undefeated. Like, they lost in the Final Four. Like, Kentucky men's basketball 10 years ago was undefeated and they lost in the Final Four, right? Like, sometimes it just happens. But if they play at their best, they could win the national championship. There's no doubt in my mind.
Good stuff. Thank you, Austin Hough with the South Bend Tribune, talking to us about Notre Dame women's basketball and, of course, Chicago deep dish pizza as well.
I was going to say deep dish pizza, man. The best.
It's all good. Hey, we appreciate you coming on and joining us, talking some sports and some other things. Look forward to having you in the future.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Austin.
Thanks for listening to ACC Nation. Be sure to listen, like and subscribe to our podcast, radio, and YouTube channels by visiting accnation.net. Follow us on Instagram, X, Facebook, Mastodon, Threads, Blue Sky and Reddit at ACC Nation.
ACC Nation.